You are not the storm that passes through the sky of your mind. You are the sky, vast, luminous, and unchanged by the weather that visits. Every thought that arises, every memory that returns like a persistent wave, every anxiety that flutters like a restless sparrow against the glass, these are movements in the air, ripples on the surface. They are not you. The world as you take it to be, constructed out of commentaries in your head, stitched together by labels and judgments, is an overlay, a painted veil. But behind the veil there is a spaciousness, a stillness in which all these flickers appear and fade. Your identity has never been the flicker. It has always been the luminous field in which the flickering is seen. Consider the way you listen to a piece of music. If you try to grab each note and hold it still, you lose the melody. The meaning of the music is not in the possession of notes, but in the space between them, in the rhythm, in the flowing relationship that cannot be grasped. In precisely the same way, you are not the isolated notes of thinking. You are the rhythm. You are the listening. Thoughts decorate, discuss, and divide, but you are the openness that allows them to come and go, the effortless awareness in which they are heard. And when you mistake yourself for the commentary, you are like a man clutching a signpost and believing he is at the destination. The signpost points. It is not the landscape. Thought points. It is not the living reality. This is not a doctrine to swallow. It is a door to walk through. The invitation is to look, not tomorrow, not after another book or another lesson, but now, at the simple fact that thoughts appear by themselves. You don't sit in a workshop manufacturing them with screws and glue. They pop up like fireflies, spontaneous, luminous, and then they go out. If you watch very closely, you will discover that between one the point ought and the next there is a silent interval, the pause that gives the sentence meaning. That interval is the doorway to who you are. How could you be the thought if you are the one noticing it? How could you be the story if you are the page on which the story is written? The page is never torn by the tragedy it carries, and it is never flattered by the poem that praises the moon. The page is free, yet without the page, no story could be told. This is your paradox. You are both the page and, when you forget, the protagonist struggling in the plot. Suffering is the contraction of remembering yourself only as the character. Freedom is the relaxation into your larger nature as the space that contains the character, the plot, and the turning of the pages. So let us begin not by trying to silence the mind, not by waging war on thought, but by recognizing a more generous identity. I am the clearing in which thoughts arise. I am the quiet lake in which reflections shimmer and dissolve. I am the space between. Now let's walk further. Notice the instinct to defend an opinion. See how quickly the body tightens when a cherished idea is questioned. A thought is treated like a child who must be protected. But the child grows best when it is allowed to play, to fall, to discover. When a thought is challenged, can you feel the surge of heat in the belly, the muscles preparing for battle? This is the old confusion between thought and self. If my idea is wrong, then I am diminished. But that is a superstition. When you stand as the space between, ideas become friendly visitors, not invaders. They may be brilliant or mistaken, helpful or useless, but none of them touch the wide ground of what you are. Think of the night sky. Whether it holds a meteor shower or a moonless emptiness, the sky does not cling. It does not say, I must keep this constellation forever. It lets every configuration appear and burn out. Your awareness is like that. And when you know yourself as this allowing, a curious gentleness arises. You become intimate with the world because you are no longer defending a brittle image. You are spacious enough to let everything pass through. The flower opens, the friend leaves, the season changes, and you remain. More like water taking the shape of each moment, less like stone resisting the flow. Let us look more closely at how the mind builds its castle. Thought says, I am this name, this past, this bundle of preferences. It lays bricks of memory and cements them with repetition. The castle is impressive. It feels solid. But solidity is only the speed of the dance. Whirl a torch in the dark, and you see a circle of fire where there is only a moving flame. In the same way, the continuity of me is a rapid succession of flickers, thoughts about thoughts, echoes of echoes, spinning so fast that they appear as one stable self. If you slow the dance with attention, the circle dissolves into a moving point. The castle turns to wind. This is not to say that the person is an error. The person is a marvelous costume, like a mask worn in a festival, necessary for the play. But imagine that you forgot you were wearing it. Imagine you began to believe the mask was your actual face. Life would grow terribly cramped. You would avoid the rain lest the paint run. You would refuse to laugh too hard lest the mask crack. The tragedy is not the mask, it is the forgetting that it is a mask. When you recall the wearer, the costume becomes light, expressive, a means of dancing rather than a prison of identity. What then is the practice? Simply this: attend to the seeing rather than the seen, to the awareness rather than its content. If a worry rises like steam from a kettle, turn your interest not to the shape of the vapor, but to the warmth in which it forms. You don't have to push the worry away. The pushing is another thought, another gust in the weather. Instead, recognize the clear air through which the cloud travels. Stay with the clarity, and notice how the cloud cannot stain it. You can write any word you like on the sky. The sky remains unstained. There is a certain playfulness to this recognition. When a harsh voice in the head says, "You should have done better," try hearing it as a bird call in a forest, part of the symphony, not a judge slamming a gavel. The forest does not need to cancel the crow because it prefers the nightingale. Both belong to the morning. Likewise, you need not cancel thought. When you are the space, you are orchestra and hall, not only the trumpet's brassy insistence. Now, take a simple scene: washing dishes. The dish is warm, the water glides around your fingers. There is the small music of porcelain touching porcelain. Typically, thought arrives to explain, "This is boring, I should hurry, I need to get back to my real life." But where exactly is that real life, if not here? By the time thought drafts its proposal about a better moment, this moment is already gone. The soap bubble that caught the light is finished. The performance has ended. So try an experiment. For the next plate, be the space in which the sensations, sounds, and movements appear. Don't reduce them to names. Let the world touch you directly. You may discover that boring was only the mind's label for a moment it refused to feel. And what of pain? This is where the teaching is tested. When grief arrives, when loss opens a hollow in the chest, thought rushes in to interpret, to bargain, to blame. But even grief unfolds in awareness. See if you can feel both the ache and the space that holds the ache. The space is not indifferent, it is intimate. It allows the tears to bead and fall without demanding that they stop. In that intimacy, the ache becomes less of a stone and more of a wave. It rises, it breaks, and it recedes. You learn that suffering persists not because pain appears, but because thought says this must not be, and then tightens the whole body against the tide. The space between does not tighten, it opens, it receives, and in receiving it releases. Notice, too, how thought is constantly trying to make life into an object you can store on a shelf. But life is event, not thing, verb, not noun. The flower is not a frozen sculpture, it is the unfolding of petals in time. And awareness is the living openness that meets the verb with a yes. To be the space is to be in love with movement, with the fact that everything, including the person you call me, is a dance of appearing and disappearing. This is why clinging hurts. It is the hand trying to seize water. Let the water run, and your hands are bathed. Let's ground this in your daily encounters. When someone criticizes you, watch the sequence. The words strike like pebbles on a pond. Ripples spread as the body braces. A chorus of inner defenders stands up with spears. In that instant, remember, you are the pond, not the pebble. Feel the surface quiver, yes, but also sense the vast volume beneath that remains untroubled. Reply, if you must, not from the ripple, but from the depth. The difference is palpable. One reply is brittle, designed to win. The other is supple, designed to connect. The first tightens your world, the second widens it. In conversation, practice listening to the spaces. Do not only harvest the words for edible meaning, taste the silences in which words ripen. Notice how a pause allows what is truly meant to land, how a brief quiet after your friend speaks turns the sentence from a projectile into a seed. When you are the space, you become a place where other people can unfold. This is a gift rarer than cleverness. In work, you may find that the mind is forever commuting to an imaginary future where everything will finally be arranged. When I have sorted this list, when I have impressed this person, when I have climbed this ridge, but the summit is an arrow that relocates as soon as you approach. There is a subtler joy available now. Be the space in which the task appears and dissolves. Write the email as a calligrapher writes a single stroke, with nothing left over. Close the laptop as a monk rings the bell, complete in the gesture. Walk to lunch as if the corridor is a temple and your footsteps are the drum. The miracle is not that one day your life will be worthy of attention. The miracle is that it already is. When anxiety flares, do not fight the dragon with a cardboard sword. Turn toward the body gently. Where does the anxiety show itself? Is it tightness in the throat, a hummingbird in the chest, a heat in the scalp? Can you let awareness wrap around that sensation like warm hands around a cup? You are not trying to fix it. You are letting it be seen. Often the sensation changes character under this gaze. It reveals edges you hadn't felt, pulses you hadn't noticed, a beginning, a middle, and an end. Felt fully, it dances itself out. The space does not demand that the dancer stop. It allows the dance to complete. Try a simple daily ritual. At the door, before stepping outside, pause and feel the breath enter like a tide and leave like a tide. Notice that you don't operate the breath with conscious levers. Breathing breathes itself. Thoughts, too, think themselves. Awareness is prior to the instruction manual. This little pause is like polishing a lens. It makes the world vivid again, the grit in the sidewalk, the scalloped edge of the clouds, the laughter rising from a cafe like steam. These details are not decorations. They are the living fabric. When you meet them without the armor of constant self-commentary, you become porous and life comes flooding in. In relationships, being the space is the end of manipulation. You discover that love is not a trade agreement. I will give you a towel. And if you give me approval, but a willingness to let another person be just as changing and ungraspable as you. To love in this way is to stop turning the beloved into a possession or a mirror. It is to be a vast field in which two caravans pass, share firelight, and continue. The field loses nothing. The caravans lose nothing. And in this non-grasping intimacy deepens because there is room to breathe, make friends with ordinary death. Not only the final departure, which is the great unclenching, but the small deaths, the end of an afternoon, the last sip of tea, the moment a laugh dissolves into quiet. If you welcome these endings without complaint, you practice for the larger letting go. You train the hand to open. You discover that endings are not enemies but doorways. The space between is the doorway. Through it, all things pass and are renewed. Now, let us be practical about the trickiest subject of all, the self-critic. That inner accountant who tallies your worth, who demands interest on every mistake. Instead of arguing with it, another expensive lawsuit, invite it to speak and notice its texture. Does it come as a rapid staccato, as a parental echo, as an ache behind the eyes? See how even this stern voice appears in the same friendly space as birdsong and kettle whistle. The space does not take sides. Strangely, when you hold the critic in unconditional awareness, it loses its authority. It becomes what it always was, a weather pattern predicting rain forever, even under a blue sky. You close the umbrella and walk on. There comes a turning, not dramatic, not announced by trumpets. When you find you are no longer practicing being the space, you are simply forgetting to contract. The fists unclench by themselves. Life remains as unpredictable as ever, but it is no longer an adversary. The dream of control loosens its grip, and with it comes a surprising courage. You can meet joy without clutching, sorrow without drowning, success without swagger, and failure without zeal. O lapse, this is not apathy, it is intimacy, freed from possession. What is the meaning of life? For the thinker, this is a quarry to be hunted down. For awareness, meaning is not captured, it is felt, like warmth through a window. Life means by being lived. You are the living. Meaning spills out of the teacup steam, hums in the refrigerator's low chant, gleams in the eye of a stranger on the bus. When you are the space between, meaning is not a sentence you carve on a stone. It is the music you hear by not grabbing the notes. Human freedom is not the power to arrange the universe to your curriculum. It is the recognition that you are the universe arranging itself as this very moment. The ego wants a throne. Awareness wants nothing because it lacks nothing. When thought says, I must become enlightened, it hides the simple radiance that is already shining. Enlightenment is not a personal achievement. It is the absence of the one who would achieve it. And in that absence there is laughter, because what you've been seeking is the seeker's home ground. Let go of the hero's pose. You do not need to be the savior of your storyline. When you are the space, the story saves itself by returning to flow. Your role becomes exquisitely light, to show up, to feel fully, to respond with the natural intelligence that arises when there is no cramped self to protect. This intelligence is not a plan, it is a dance, adjusting like a cat's paw on a ledge, graceful because it does not argue with gravity. If you wish for a practice to carry into the quiet, try this. Sit and listen to the whole field of sound as if it were one vast chord. Not this bird, that car, this breath, but the totality. In that listening, notice the effortless awareness that includes it all. When thoughts come, widen rather than narrow. Let the field keep them, like stars joining the night. At some point, the boundary between you here, world there, softens. The space is not inside your head. Rather, your head is one ripple in the space. This is not an idea to be believed. It is a softness to be felt. And now a closing, not as an end, but as a gentle tapering into silence. Let the body rest as if it were a boat settling on a calm harbor. Feel the breath enter, cool at the tip of the nose, and leave, slightly warm, a ghost of a tide. Notice a thought stroll in, hat tilted, perhaps commenting on how well or poorly you are doing. Bow to it, let it pass down the street. Another thought may hurry after, waving papers. Let it pass. You do not have to hire every visitor that enters the lobby. You are the lobby itself, wide, sunlit, with doors that open on all sides. Let the heart unclench. There is nothing to defend. The world will continue to blossom and wither. People will arrive and depart. Seasons will steep and pour themselves out. You are that in which all of this happens. The more deeply you know this, the more tenderly you live. Tender because everything is fleeting. Tender because nothing needs to be possessed to be loved. Tender because the space between is not emptiness but fullness, the generous capacity that makes room for mountains and teacups alike. Place your attention now on the tiny pause after the exhale. There, in that unmarked moment, feel the unfurnished room of awareness, no window, no furniture, yet open to the whole sky. That is you. From that openness, let this simple understanding echo. Thoughts will continue to rise and fall. I do not need to stop them. I am not the weather. I am the sky. I am the space between. Carry this into your day like a lamp you do not have to hold. It hangs by itself, casting a warm circle wherever you stand. When irritation sparks, let it flare and fade in the lamp's glow. When joy visits, let it dance in the same light. When nothing in particular happens, let the quiet be its own festival. And when the night comes and the lamp is set down, recognize that the light it sheds is borrowed from the dawn already on its way. Rest, then, in the simple truth. You are the listening more than the word, the seeing more than the seen, the open hand more than what it holds. In remembering this, you do not leave the world. You enter it more completely, for you stop trying to edit the river and start feeling the water. Let us end where we began, with a statement that is not a claim, but an invitation. You are not your thoughts. You are the spaciousness in which they appear, the freedom between the notes, the silence that makes the symphony possible. Trust that and walk gently. The path under your feet is already home.